Second half of Final Exam Review B. Diagram below, we have quadrilateral late, which is an isosceles trapezoid with LE is congruent to AT. So that's the isosceles part, that the left and the right angled pieces are congruent to each other. LA is 24, that's the upper base. ET is 40, that's the lower base. And it tells you that AT is 10. Since it's isosceles, LE is also 10. Altitudes LF and AG are drawn. So here's the deal. If AL is 24 and ET phone home. If ET is 40, then 40 minus 24 is 16, and then I cut that in half and I get 8 and 8. Now, who else here couldn't possibly hear the term ET and not say ET phone home? You have to. You must have seen the movie E.T. Or am I really, truly that old? Okay. And I don't need any comments about being bald at this point in time either. What's the length of LF? Well, I have a right triangle here where my base, or one of the legs is 8, the other leg is x, and my hypotenuse across from the right angle is 10. So x squared plus 8 squared is 10 squared. X squared plus 64 is 100. Subtracting the 64s, x squared is 36. X is 6. So once again, what I notice in this figure is a right triangle on both the right and left ends, and they're congruent. I notice the legs are x and 8, and the hypotenuse is 10. So as soon as I see that, I know the Pythagorean theorem applies. Uncle Pythagoras, plugging it in, x squared plus 8 squared is 10 squared, works out to be 6. It's a choice, so that's uplifting. Number 13, diagram below of triangle ABC. This time I know it's an isosceles triangle. And there's two things that are really important to remember about an isosceles triangle. One is that two legs are congruent to each other, two sides, two legs. And the other is that the base angles, which are across from the two congruent legs or two congruent sides, are also congruent. So in the problem, they only gave us the vertex angle, the guy up top, which is 3x. And they gave us one of the base angles, x plus 20. You were supposed to remember that the other base angle was congruent. So if angle B is x plus 20, then angle C is also x plus 20. I use the brackets to show all three angles. So 3x plus one of the x plus 20s plus the other x plus 20 has to add up to 180. Combining like terms, same side, same operation. 3x and x is 5x. 20 and 20 make 40. Subtracting 40 from both sides, 5x is 140. X is 28. Oh, what are they asking for? Apparently, they're asking for x, so 28 is good enough. Number 14, remember I said that the test will have one proof question on it that has something to do with the reason. Here's one practice on this one. The nice thing is they do the entire proof for you, steps 1 through 4, getting the triangles congruent. And then they say, well, now how come angle B has to be congruent to angle D? In other words, that the opposite angles are congruent. And the reason is because of CPCTC. Once you get the triangles congruent, then that means the corresponding parts have to be congruent. And angles B and D do correspond to each other. So, number 3, it says it in words rather than just CPCTC. It says the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Number 15, when a dilation is performed on a hexagon, which property of the hexagon will not be preserved? Oh, I misread this. There we go. Daily dumb mistake. Ding, 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 ding. I'm writing myself a note here to correct it in the answer sheets. Final review B. It says not. I did which one was preserved. I read the first one and I didn't go any further than that. That is why the story about me, it should validate the story about me not getting 100 with that teacher when I was in college, Professor Wilkin. Oh, God, was he awful. Okay. The one that is not preserved, parallel is good. Measure the angles is good. Lengths to the side is good. Orientation does not have to be preserved. Okay? Because if you do a negative, then... Oh, wait. Hold it. Scratch that. The one that's not preserved is the lengths to the sides. I don't have to make any correction on that. I totally misread it. Sorry about that. See, that would have been my dumb mistake. When dilation is performed on a hexagon, which one will not be preserved in its image? Wait, which property of the hexagon will not be preserved? Well, the lengths of its size will not be preserved because the dilation changes the size. So that's the one that's not preserved. Okay. Orientation, I'd have to look at orientation. That would depend on what would happen when you dilate it by a negative. And I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head, though I suspect it stays the same. And we didn't talk about orientation, so don't worry about it. Number 16, in the diagram below of circle O, chord AB is parallel to chord GH. Ding, 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 ding. Very important. Parallel chords always intersect congruent arcs. So as soon as I know that AB is parallel to GH, AG and BH are congruent. Which statement's always true? Choice 4. AG is congruent to BH. Number 17, which set of numbers could not represent the lengths of the sides of a right triangle? 2, 3, and 4. All I have to do is test the Pythagorean theorem because it always works in a right triangle. Now, if you knew your Pythagorean triples, you would know right away that 3, 4, 5, and 8, 15, 17 are always right triangles. And then you could try the Pythagorean theorem on 1 and on 2. You would see it does not check on number 2. So therefore, choice 2 is not the lengths of the sides. Number 18, in the diagram below, under which transformation is A prime, B prime, C prime, that triangle, the image of ABC? And what I notice is that it's being flipped over this vertical line. That vertical line is best known as the y-axis. So it's a reflection over the y-axis. Number 19, again, we're told the lines are parallel, which as soon as we're told that, that means that AC is congruent to BD. It tells us that the arc up top, 104, the arc AB, and arc CD at the bottom is 168. So if I add up 104 and 168, I come up with 272. If I then subtract that from 360, I come up with 88. And then, since both of the chords have to add up to 88, the one chord BD, the one arc, the two arcs have to add up to 88, and the one arc BD is going to be half of 88 or 44. Number 20, determine in degrees the measure of each interior angle of a regular octagon. So here's another question that was not on the first pretest, that if you didn't do the second pretest, you wouldn't be prepared for. That's why it's very important that you do all three of them. Formula for the sum of the measures of the interior angles is 180 times n minus 2. 8 sides, so I plug that in, I get 180 times 6, which is 1080. And then since there's 8 sides, there's 8 angles, so I divide by 8 and I get 135 degrees. Number 21, the volume of a sphere is 44.6022 cubic centimeters. What's the radius of the sphere to the nearest tenth of a centimeter? So the sphere will be, here's your formula for the volume of a sphere. Volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So 44.6022 equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And I divide both sides by 4/3 pi. And when I do that, I come up with 10.64. And now, there's two ways to do this. If you're using a graphing calculator, which is a pretty good thing, in the math function, if you hit the math key, there's cube roots, so you could just use that one. If you're using a scientific calculator, I don't know if there's cube roots. That's how long it's been since I worked on it. I do have I have a scientific calculator on my desk here. I'm not seeing a cube root on it. They have oh, there is a cube root. Okay, so scientific calculator has a cube root. It's above the x cube button, which makes sense. And if you didn't like that, you could always just plug in the choices. And like the answer is choice 1, and you could do 2.2 times 2.2 times 2.2. And you would see that it's really, really close to 10.64. So then you'd say, oh, that must be it. Next one, number 22. It talks about joining midpoints here. So when you join the midpoints, you create a segment that's half as long as the parallel third side. So if AC is 3x minus 15, DE is half of that. So if DE is 6, if I double the DE and get 12, then they have to be equal. So 12 equals 3x minus 15. Add 15 to both sides. 27 is 3x. Dividing by 3, x is 9. Okay. Number 23. Triangle ABC has the vertices 6, 6, 9, 0, and 3, -3 in that order. State and label the coordinates of a triangle A prime, B prime, C prime, the image of triangle ABC after a dilation of 1/3. Dilation multiplies, so you're going to multiply by 1/3, which is the same exact thing as dividing by 3. So 6, 6 becomes 2, 2. 9, 0 becomes 3, 0. And 3, negative 3 becomes 1, negative 1. Number 24, one piece of the birdhouse that Natalie is building is shaped like a regular pentagon. Looks like home plate, right? Almost. The sides aren't parallel. As shown in the accompanying diagram. So it wants to know the measure of an exterior angle. So here's the thing. The sum of the exterior angles of any polygon, regular or irregular, doesn't make a difference, is always 360. Always. And a pentagon has 5 sides, so 360 divided by 5 is 72. The fact that it's a regular polygon means all of the exterior angles are the same, all the lengths of the sides are the same, and all the angles are the same. So 72 is the correct answer. Number 25, the accompanying diagram shows the transformation of triangle XYZ to X prime, Y prime, Z prime. And in each of these cases, I looked up and I said, oh, I'm looking at the lines. Oh, it's a translation. And then I go, oh, wait a minute, the size is changing. So since the side changes, then that means it has to be a dilation. Okay? All right? And that word, it says grows. It took me a minute to read my own handwriting, but it does say grows. The figure XYZ grows. It changes size, which means it has to be a dilation. A line reflection, by the way, is best known as a flip. A rotation is a spin, and a translation is a slide. And though this does look like it's sliding, what it's really doing is growing. And you're seeing the growth with those diagonal lines. Number 26, our last one for the day. If the length of a rectangular television screen is 20 inches and its height is 15 inches, what's the length of the diagonal? Well, look, rectangle means it has a right angle in the corner here. So 15 and 20 are the two legs. X is the hypotenuse. 20 squared plus 15 squared has to equal x squared. 400 plus 225 is x squared. Add them up, you get 625 is x squared. X is 25. This is a 3, 4, 5 right triangle multiplied by 5. So choice 3, 25 is it. All right, we've now completed 2 of your pre-tests. One last thing before I close off this video. I told you the story in the first one, and it really was one of the most profound learning experiences of my life. These are the things, more so than even the mathematics, these are the things that college is really supposed to teach you. It's supposed to teach you about priorities and responsibilities and rising to the moment and finding a way to get done the things that you are expecting to get done, that are expected of you. With this final exam coming up, it makes you perfectly normal. If you're saying to yourself, man, the weather's getting better, I'm not into this right now. You're not bad. The question is, how are you going to react to that feeling? And if you're able to what we call compartmentalize, which means you take that emotion, that feeling, and you put it in a drawer, you tuck it away, and you say, I'll take that out later on. But for now, I got a job to do. I'm going to focus. I'm going to find a way to get that job done. One of my favorite hobbies in the world is fly tying. I absolutely love it. And I would like nothing more than to have been fly tying for the last 2 weeks or so. But I haven't touched a fly because even though trout season's coming up, and the reason for that is because I've had so many responsibilities with tutoring and teaching, with a friend whose wife's mom, his mother-in-law, is passing away, and landscaping, that there just hasn't been time for the things that I want to do. There will be time, though. There will be time. As a matter of fact, when I'm done recording 2 more of these videos is when the time arrives. So I will get started at that point in time. But for now, you are a greater responsibility than fly tying. And I have to make sure that I am there for you to make sure that you do the best you can. And if I can make sure of that, you can really make sure of that. All right? Keep focused. Keep working. Let's make it happen. Have a good one. Bye-bye.